Hey everyone, it's Katherine Kowalczyk with the Responsibility Quotient podcast, and today is June the 4th, 2024, and I have as my guest tonight, a little bit later than usual, but Marco Van Huigenbos. So welcome, Marco. How are you doing these days?
Good. Well, thanks for having me on. I look forward to having a good chat, but things are busy, so that's always a good thing what what life all has shoved what life has done to me in the last couple of months. So being busy is a great distraction. So
Yeah, I can imagine. For those of you who don't know who Marco is a freedom fighting Albertan. He was involved with the Coots protest during the lockdown and mandates during COVID. And as a result of his role in the lockdowns, he was charged with mischief. And earlier this year, in April, I believe, right, Marco, you were convicted and you're facing a up to 10-year prison sentence as a result of this conviction. Is that correct?
yeah, so Mischief over 5,000 trial started the beginning of end of April, beginning of May, and finished the middle of May. And we were convicted. So about 6 weeks ago, actually, it seems like a long time ago, but it's only been 6 weeks ago. And the maximum penalty is 10 years. That's not what we're gonna get, but they are seeking jail time. So our next court date, our arraignment date, is July the 22nd. Myself with my co-accused, and that leads to our sentencing date toward the end of this year or beginning of next year. That date has not been set, but that date will be set on our arraignment date, July 22nd. So, yeah, nothing's
Wow.
quick when it comes to our legal system, but it's been a bit of a ride for sure.
So tell me about your how you felt during the trial, and I know that you were expecting probably something like this to happen for yourself, but you weren't sure about the other two co-accused. But tell me a little bit more about how you felt that the trial was handled, by and large.
Yeah, so the process itself went exactly the way it's designed to go. Um, a lot of people have issue with our legal system and the way it operates, and again, I might share those frustrations, but there was no foul play as a whole. We can look into our situation, our charges, and the political aspect of that. And yes, I'll have comments on that. And I believe there's a lot of interference there, and it's political retribution to some degree. But in and of itself, in that courtroom 6, courthouse 320, things went exactly the way they're designed to go. And many people will have issue with that, and that's understandable because the courts have been weaponized. Our system it's not justice focused anymore, it's legal focused, and it's not about all the details of the circumstance we were involved in, the situation we were involved in, all the details around the circumstance and the situation and the event. It was the letter of the law. You can't actually. It's not even that. It's that whether you were a principal offender of the event in Coots, committing the crime of mischief, or aiding and abetting the principal offenders. So there was 3 different questions in the charge to the jury at the end of the proceedings and it was a lengthy charge. It was like 50 some pages, but it came down to a few questions: whether we were the principal offenders, whether the Crown had made their case in relation to myself and my co-accused, or whether we aided and abetted the principal offenders. And well, it's pretty obvious that I was there for 18 days. That's never been up for discussion that Marco Van Huigenbos was in or around the vicinity of Coutts, Alberta during that time frame. But it didn't take into consideration why we were there. And that's something I really struggled with. I struggled with all the legality around the law and the courts and procedure, and we're on the defense. The Crown has to make their case. But there was no opportunity for us to rebuttal against the accusation of being there and why we were there. And they're going, like, the day that the Crown closed their case, we would have had an opportunity to bring forward witnesses, which we never did. There was nobody there. There's no witness that could have helped us in this situation, that could have said, oh, these men were innocent of what they were charging us of. Like, it's a very real charge. They were charging us with a charge that spoke to what they deemed was the offense. And I mean, that in and of itself was pretty hard to dispute.
I know, and I think the biggest thing, and maybe where you're going with this, Marco, is that there seems to be no justice these days in terms of holding people accountable that really ought to be held accountable for what has been taking place the last number of years, especially during 2020 and beyond. Because what I'm seeing right now is men like yourself, women like Tamara Leach, being persecuted, being, the punishment is definitely part of the process. It's expensive. It's upended everybody's lives. Trying to hire a lawyer and get good legal representation. Yet we have the people who brought upon the lockdowns, implemented these unconstitutional mandates, coerced people to take an experimental jab that is causing significant harm and death among many people. Yet they seem to be continuing with their life as if nothing ever happened. Yet people who are rightfully resisting unlawful pieces of legislation, unjust, immoral legislation, are being held to this higher standard. And this is where we are in our world right now, where we have this moral conundrum and crossroads for many Canadians and Albertans. There's such a divide on these issues because the courts are no longer, or they're selectively choosing to enforce the rule of law. And of course, any semblance of rights and freedoms is similarly cherry picked in terms of what side of the political spectrum or political position you might have. Is that kind of where you're going with all of this?
Well, 100% correct, right? People may say, well, Marco broke the law. And then I kind of chuckle and I say, yeah, maybe Marco did. Maybe Marco was involved in something that those looking in on this event, without taking into consideration why we were there, see us as criminals, see us behave. They deemed us behaving in a mischievous manner, right? But here's what I say to them, and here's the unfortunate part. The reason why we were there, the tyranny that we were opposing, that tyranny to some degree has been put to bed in the scale it was at that time, right? The mandates and such. But where is the accountability? Where is the accountability for those that forced law-abiding blue-collar, white-collar Canadians and Albertans to take it upon themselves to protest to the levels that they did? Yeah. Where's the accountability for them? There's been none. They broke the law.
Well,
There's actually been court proceedings that have shown that our chief medical officer of health and that Jason Kenney and those in positions of power didn't do things properly. The Ingram decision, for example.
yeah.
So nobody wants to talk about that. Everybody wants to say, well, Marco, he broke the law. And what they really want, what they actually are telling me, and I'm running into this day in, day out, and it frustrated me to some point, and it still does, but I just chuckle now. But what they really want is for me to just shut up and go away. They want us to shut up, do our time, because we're the bad ones. Don't worry. Let's not talk about the fact that what Coots was and what Coots ended up doing and saved thousands of lives. And I don't want to speak to that because there's thousands of people that were involved. But the heroes that were at that border are now an inconvenience to the conservative movement in this province, because it was a conservative government, and those conservatives are still in government. Well, I got a message for them. I'm sorry. I'm not going anywhere. I mean, I may go away for a little while, but I'm not going to shut up. And even family, even those close to me they think I'm making all the wrong choices. Well, I'm sorry. It's not a choice for me anymore. I've been put in a position, and when I took that corner and I drove down Highway 4, January the 29th, 2022, I could have never imagined what that decision would have done, or the consequences, and good and bad, how that has changed my life. And I'm on this trajectory now. And I mean, I believe in divine intervention. I believe there is a God, and God may have plans for me personally, but there is accountability needed in this province and elsewhere. And I'm sorry, I have no connections in Ottawa. I just don't. I don't have any methods to orchestrate anything there. But in this province, I do. I have connections, and I am beating that drum of accountability. And people just want to put COVID to bed. The government doesn't want to talk about COVID anymore.
They wanted to do it right off the giddy up. Like, I couldn't believe it when I ran in last year's provincial election with the Independence Party in Olds, Didsbury, Three Hills. I was the only candidate that wanted to talk about COVID-19 and the government mandates and the lockdowns. And I was part of my campaign platform was to require the government have a robust independent public inquiry with respect to COVID, so that we could have not only understand exactly what happened and who did what, but to have that accountability. Because without that, the healing isn't going to, it will never fully occur, right? And we can
the trust, everything.
The trust, and let's look at it from the truth and reconciliation perspective. When we realize, as much as that process and what's happening there is also political and maybe flawed, at the end of the day, we're dealing with real people. Real people's lives were affected. People suffered. People died. And they're still trying to recover from the ramifications, all of that now. Yet, I say this when that was part of my campaign, but the electorate didn't want to talk about it. They didn't make it an issue. It was almost as if, and we're going to get into TBA, Take Back Alberta, I hope, as part of our conversation later on. But, that movement it might have been effective in one aspect, because it did remove Jason Kenney, but it also dropped the ball on it. For whatever reason, it was part of what quieted the freedom people, the freedom fighters that were rallying every weekend, let's say in Calgary, across the province, against the mandates right from the very beginning. And they were all of a sudden mesmerized by this new person called Danielle Smith that said all the right things and so far has yet to deliver on these things. But I guess my point, my rant is this, Marco. The people in that election, so soon after the end of the lockdowns, were content to not make it an issue. And that shocked the hell out of me. So
and
there we are.
you say drop the ball. There was no dropping the ball means an attempt was made. TBAs,
Well, I guess,
and I mean
well,
individuals in Take Back Alberta were focused on holding Jason Kenney accountable for all those things, but there was no intention and no desire, and that's where my falling out started with some of those in TBA, because the attitude and the interest and desire to now hold, and I mean this premier can't be, Daniel Smith can't be held accountable for Jason Kenney's actions, but she can be held accountable for continuing and not challenging aspects of the COVID regime. You know, we're in an endemic, but really, are we? Right?
well,
So,
I mean, we still have a jab.
Well, exactly, right? And I mean, there's many, because people say, you know, somebody said we overthrew the government. No, we didn't overthrow the government. We removed a premier, and we put in a new premier in that same government. Sure, it's a different administration, 100%. I know how that works, but the government hasn't changed. And I mean, nothing has changed. Sure, different ministries, different individuals, and different postings. But if anything, it's back to what it was. And let's just forget about it. Let's forget about COVID. I got news for people. I don't know if they've been watching. And I mean, Canada is a latecomer. We always are. Fashion, a lot of trends. Some trends lately. We've been trendsetters, unfortunately, social issues and stuff. But we're late to the game on things quite often. We're just a corner of the world. We're the corner of the Western Hemisphere, Western society. Well, guess what? COVID accountability, Canada is also late to the game. But it's coming. I promise you it's coming. Look at the States. Look at what's happening there. Dr. Fauci this week. Like, people are pissed, and rightfully so. And Canadians, It may take a while. It's almost like the 5 stages of grief. We're in denial, the first phase right now. Wait till we get to the second one. You know what the second one is? Anger. We're going to get there.
Well, I think what's going to happen eventually is, and I've been saying this for many, many years, is pain is the touchstone for change, right? And I think unless somebody is personally affected by something, they tend not to make any moves because their life is comfortable. It's when life gets uncomfortable that people start to take notice and are more prone to want to participate in a solution. And I think that it's coming. We have a myriad of things that are working in concert together that are making life in Alberta for Albertans more challenging. We have these ridiculous climate change policies. We have this ridiculous diversity, equity, and inclusivity social program being rolled out throughout all of the institutions, not only our educational institutions, but also our governments as well, and corporations with the ESGs. And then, of course, we have this massive influx of seemingly uncontrolled hodgepodgey immigration that is completely changing the social, moral, and economic fabric of Alberta. And so we have these 3 things that are having a massive impact in Canada. They're having a massive impact in Alberta as well. And so I think it's a good time that we delve into, what I'm really passionate about, and I know you are too, is Alberta politics and where we are right now with Alberta politics, and with a premier who seemed to promise and say the right things and use the buzzword sovereignty to get the freedom people off her back, but has, as you have kind of alluded to earlier, has failed to deliver, and in fact has turned out to be a premier that doesn't resemble really a conservative worldview, but rather is quite in line with a socialist left of center agenda. What do you think?
Agreed. Well, I agree. I mean, I'll be the first to say that I might have got it wrong. And people ask me, what do you mean you got it wrong? Well, I was a big Danielle Smith supporter. I believe that Danielle Smith was authentic in her desire. And let me be clear, she may have been authentic at that time in her desire to meet the challenges and the anger that was presented or that was ripe in conservative circles at that time. That may have been a desire of hers. That may have been something she related to at that time. Unfortunately, that Danielle Smith is nowhere to be found. So was it authentic? It might have been authentic at that time, but it no longer is. The promises that were made in the 2022 leadership race, even the promises, even the centrist, even the promises that this government made pretty much 1 year ago in the general election have been broken. It's been one broken promise after another.
Can you summarize some of the promises that you believe that she made and is not fulfilling?
Okay, so well, for starters, I'll start with some of the earlier promises, some of the grassroots promises that she made in her leadership race. Danielle Smith, she had promised to reopen nominations, and we're talking specifically the Rocky Rimby Mountain House Sundre nomination involving Tim Hovan and Jason Nixon. And
Right.
the second contentious nomination was the Carson Siksika nomination down here between Joseph Scow and Jody Gateman at that time. And just a little bit of background on those two noms. Those were nominations that were run before Jason Kenney resigned. So they were run in the summer of 2021. And they would have been some of the first nominations to go forward. And these two individuals were significant players in Jason Kenney's caucus. Jason Nixon was, I believe he was House Leader at that time. He might have even had a cabinet posting. And Joseph Scow, who, along with Danny Williams, Jason Kenney brought back from Ottawa when he came to, when he ran for the leadership of the UCP, of the PCs, and then they united the PCs and the Wild Rose, and then there was a leadership race, which resulted in the kamikaze candidates and all of that controversial stuff. He brought Dan Williams, MLA, I'm not sure where he's MLA, up in the Crete area up north, and Joseph Scow from Ottawa. They were staffers there in the CPC side of things, and they were very close to Kenney. So they had these nominations run, and there was a serious challenge in these noms. And instead of allowing the people the opportunity to exercise their democratic right in the party process, they found reasons to disqualify these candidates that were posing serious threats. And this was a very controversial issue in the party, in the rural side of the party, and all parts of the party. And Danielle Smith was aware of this, and she made the promise to reopen. This is the promise she said, quote, "I will pledge to you as well, if any of the local ridings want some of those ridings reopened because they don't believe that they've been fair or they believe the candidates have been disqualified inappropriately, we will address that when I'm elected," said Smith. Well, I don't need to speak to how that promise was broken. We're all aware that that opportunity never arose, and Danielle Smith, very under pressure. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that she just randomly decided not to do it. No, under pressure. She received a lot of pressure from Edmonton, from Cox, from the party not to do this. But that's the thing with a promise, right? You promise, you ran on that campaign, you follow through. And the threats and the bullying from those individuals in the party who had standing and influence Well, you meet that head on. That's the role of a leader, to meet those challenges. And I'm not saying that it's so black and white, but it really is to some degree. It's black and white. Promise made, promise kept, or promise broken. Well, in this case, promise broken. I actually have a document
So
I'm reading from. I put together a 7-page document on promises made and promises broken.
yeah, I think I, I might have that.
I might have sent that to you,
Uh,
actually. Yeah,
you
I
you
think I
might have
sent that
sent
to you
that to
earlier
me.
today. I thought it was cool.
So, but I'm wondering, and maybe let's talk about like this next question. Like some might feel, because when you and I had an interview, I think in February, or it was before you were it was
Trial.
definitely
Yeah.
before your trial. I was just brand new at doing this, and you and I had previous to that many conversations about, oh, Katherine, you were saying, oh, Katherine, just give the UCP some time, give her time, and blah 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 blah. And I was kind of hard on you about my thoughts on that and how I didn't have faith in that time that you were extending to her. However, perhaps people might see, you were convicted of this mischief, even though she has nothing to do with that technically. But is this different perspective of Danielle Smith that you have now, sour grapes, or is this? Do you really believe that? And we can get into some other, some of the other things that has not done and fulfilled to maybe inform your opinion. But I just want to make sure this isn't just sour grapes, because I mean, you could be going to jail, which, I mean, let's face it, that would piss me off.
Yeah. So to say I'm not pissed off would be a lie. But my anger, so I guess me being frustrated with the situation I'm in and the injustice of it all, it does make me a bit more aggressive in nature. Not, I don't lose my respectful methods. I'm direct. If anything, I'm leading the charge for accountability and responsible government that much more, because I have now felt, suffered, and I'm experienced the injustice of when government isn't operating along those parameters.
Yeah.
I've been very clear. I've been very, very clear that Danielle Smith could not and should not, can't and hasn't interfered in the judicial side of things. That sets a very dangerous precedence. I've been very clear on that. A lot of people are like, Marco has an axe to grind. Marco's just pissed off. Marco's sour grapes. That's an attempt to discredit me. And I just chuckle a bit, because I'm not here spouting off about the injustice that I feel that I'm experiencing. Never, nada, ever. That's not why I'm here. That's not what I'm doing. This document I sent you, it doesn't have my opinion in it. It's copy paste on things.
It really is quite interesting. And I mean, I've been following politics as well, especially more so since this COVID stuff and lockdowns. And of course, I do have an interest as a former candidate. But you do go through a couple of things, and I want to, if I can, I'm just going to read another one to you. To date, the Premier's office has spent almost $9 million on a failed Alberta pension publicity campaign. They have also completely stopped talking about key sovereignty issues. And so it goes on to say, last year during the election campaign, the Premier said these quote unquote controversial issues are no longer important. I guess referring to the pension plan and policing. Why? Because they are doing daycare now. They're not in our campaign because I think we've got so many things that we have done that we're excited about. We're bringing in $10 daycare, and that was in an Edmonton City News article in 2023, November 23rd. And also in the National Post. So what we're seeing is, Danielle Smith had campaigned on lowering taxes, but not just in the provincial campaign, but also in her leadership campaign. Certainly led Albertans to believe that she believed in the autonomy and sovereignty of Alberta. even went so far as to bring in the Sovereignty Do Nothing Act. That's what I call it. Was all smoke and mirrors political theater, which had absolutely no teeth, because at the end of the day, she stated that she was going to abide by and agree with whatever the Supreme Court of Canada decision was going to be on any given issue. So, and we've seen thus far, a year and a half or a year into her term, I guess, as premier, that the Sovereignty Do Nothing Act hasn't been invoked because it does nothing that the province already didn't have at its fingertips through the Constitution, through Section 92. So for me, when I saw all that unfolding, because I was with the Independence Party at the time, and I do still believe that independence is the only viable solution to get us out of this mess that Canada is dragging us into, and all the leaders in Canada as well. But when I saw all of this, it just reminded me of all the political theater that is happening. And in fact, the reason why nothing has happened with that piece of legislation thus far is because there's nothing to happen with it. There's nothing that piece of legislation gave, other than a platform for Danielle Smith to try to reel in the people that were really, really upset. That's my take on it.
It's political appeasement, a strongly worded promise that turns into a piece of legislation that has no teeth to it. I mean, promise kept, promise made, promise kept. The reality is, all these sovereignty issues that Danielle Smith tied to her campaign, including her key piece, the Sovereignty Act, came from the Fair Panel deal. The Fair Panel, all the recommendations that Fair Panel deal, which actually went out there and interviewed Albertans, put together. There were some really good initiatives and recommendations that came out of the Fair Panel. And where's that gone? Well, it's shelved. That's now shelved. Danielle Smith's promises are shelved because you read one of those off. But I mean,
yeah,
there's a group.
We can read more.
Well, we can get there, but let's talk about some of these issues, like the Alberta pension plan. Like you said, they bungled the $7.5 to $9 million publicity campaign last year. I didn't see any value come out of that. I don't know if I ever got a message or seen something even come across my social media screen sponsored or something along those lines. I'm not sure who got the contract and what happened with it, but I think that's worth an investigation. But there's now an organization, and I got to give them a lot of credit. They're doing the best they can. There's a group of individuals they call themselves Alberta First, and they're getting a lot of information out there. They're filling town halls, and it's a citizen-led initiative. But to do what? To have a referendum on a referendum, right? The premier wants to have X amount of signatures, 230,000 signatures, to then initiate what is something I don't agree with to start with, Bill 2, the fair something piece of legislation that they put in last November, that a referendum has to be held. What's wrong with exerting the authority that you have as a premier, as a government, to put Ottawa on notice, to put Canadian Pension Plan on notice and say, we're withdrawing? It's not something that happens overnight. It's probably going to take half a decade by the time it's all cut and dried. So wouldn't we want to initiate that process today, right now? People say, well, we don't have the number. We'll get the number. The number will be hashed out in court. I promise you this, that number will come out of a court ruling, and it'll get challenged, and it'll go to a higher level of court. And ultimately, it'll be the courts that determine this. But we have a right under the Constitution to have our own pension. Quebec has it from the beginning. They have it. Well, we want it. And whatever that number is, we can argue about it today.
Just totally
it's not relevant.
It just makes sense. It makes sense.
It benefits Alberta.
Yeah.
And guess
I
who's
had
the kicker?
Nadine Wellwood. No, go ahead.
She's great.
What's the kicker?
Here's the kicker. Federal MP Heather McPherson, NDP MP in Edmonton, is putting forward a private member's bill that will change the legislation on how a province can leave the CPP. And it'll follow the lines of how you reopen the Constitution. How you reopen equalization, for example, which is by reopening the Constitution. If she's successful, if that member's bill comes forward and it's ratified by the coalition we have in Ottawa, Liberal NDP coalition, Alberta will no longer be able to put Ottawa on notice and say we're withdrawing. They will need the support of said amount of provinces. Well, which province? Name me one province. We have provinces that align with us on issues. Even Quebec aligned with us a couple of weeks ago and says we support Alberta and their desire to be more sovereign, because they agree with that, because they have it too. BC aligns with us on certain issues at certain times. Saskatchewan aligns with us on a lot of things. But there is not one province or territory in this country that agrees with Alberta leaving the Canadian Pension Plan. So if Heather McPherson, if MP Heather McPherson is successful with her private member's bill in changing the requirements for a province to leave the Canadian Pension Plan, we're screwed. That's hanging over our head right now. Daniel Smith, Edmonton, and this UCP government know this. And what are they doing about this? What they will do about this is when it's too late, they'll throw their hands up in the air and they say, oh, there's nothing we can do now.
Well,
and that's
it is interesting.
Excuse.
Yeah, it's because as Randy Hillier says, I interviewed him a couple of months ago as well, and he was a long-term MPP in Ontario, and he was very clear that our governments, all of our governments, are captured by the lobbyists and corporate interests. So, in fact, I mean, we know that. I think COVID really opened a lot of people's eyes to the fact that there's something significantly wrong with our governments. We have, Klaus Schwab bragging about how he's penetrating almost all the cabinet members for the Liberal Party federally. Of course, we know that. And what I find interesting as well is that, and I think we can get into this upcoming legislation, these bills that have been quite controversial lately that the Smith government has introduced, including Bill 20, that these conservative or pseudo-conservative governments like Stephen Harper's federal government, they set up this legislation, like they get us into the Paris Climate Accord. They set up these pieces of legislation like Bill 20 that gives the province and cabinet these robust, wide-reaching powers over smaller municipalities or government in general. And then when the government changes, for instance, the law is already in place and teed up for the left. In this case, what's happening in Canada is the leftist, socialist, communists, the Liberal Party, coming in and enacting all the laws that Stephen Harper, for instance, bound Canadians to. Bound Canada too. So we have a situation where, and that's why I think that they're this uniparty system where they work back and forth with one another, recognizing that even if they're not the party the next go around, they're going to at least benefit from the fruits of their legislation because the next government is going to continue on and enact it anyway. And so this next round of stuff that's happening with our province with Bill 20, which is called, the Municipal Affairs Statutes Act, which seeks to give the province this authority to remove city councillors and town councillors, municipal councillors, or to call a referendum to get rid of these councillors. This sort of power grab by any government is, I think, really short-sighted ultimately at the end of the day, because this tide will turn, and you don't want to give a government that much authority over, even though I know the province has quite a, could really do away with any city if they wanted to. They have that authority, but you don't want to give a government any sort of carte blanche kind of authority like they're giving themselves, because we know how that's going to be used, not only by them, but in future governments that may not hold the same values as a majority of the province.
Well, the irony, and you're so correct, Catherine, but the irony here is that we have a government who prides themselves on, or a premier in a government who prides themselves on being the most freedom focused premier in government in ever, or in the country, who likes to bang Ottawa over the head with a skillet on stay in your lane and overreach and jurisdiction, who now is baking or cooking with that same skillet. Bill 20. It's a power grab, and there's aspects of it that I that it's an omnibus bill for starters. So we've only really focused on the controversial parts. There's a lot of very standard stuff that could have been legislated much quicker in separate legislation. Bang, bang, bang. Bill, right? You can. And I mean, you might have even had
more transparent as well,
and more transparency, and you might have even had some unanimous consent in the legislature on it. Probably not with how politics is run these days, but you might have. Instead, they rammed through this omnibus bill, Bill 20, and even Bill 21, and the Ottawa, or whatever, the Priorities Act, Bill 1819. And I'm not going to talk about how this was rammed through legislature. That's a different discussion. But to put this, like, to essentially give a partisan group of individuals that authority because that's it. Like, people say, oh, it's a UCP in power right now. Correct. But to give a partisan, I'm going to take it a step back, to give a partisan group of individuals that much power over municipalities in this province is very concerning. And then people will argue back and say, well, we need to deal with Calgary, Edmonton. We need to deal with 5 cities. So back up a step. Okay. Do we have a problem in the cities? Yes, we do. There's 10 municipalities in this province that probably have connection with Ottawa directly. The larger, Medicine Hat, Lethbridge, Grand Prairie, Red Deer, Edmonton, Calgary. There's no more than 10 larger municipalities in the province that have agreements with Ottawa directly. Is that concerning? Is that a reason for the province to step in and want to have a say? Okay, that's understandable. But to legislate through municipal priorities bill, municipal affairs, change in municipal affairs legislation, to legislate to legislate in a manner that affects 344 municipalities in this province, that's ridiculous.
Well, and the way I understand it, I understand it as well, is that what they've done, I mean, there is a process. I mean, Rick McIver, Minister of Municipal Affairs, has already exercised his muscle by ousting Jeff Colvin in Chestermere and the city councillors there. And so we have a situation where there is a process in place. They had to follow a process, and now it seems like these new changes are going to do away with that process, the due process that is designed to ensure some sort of accountability and ability for the person who it's affecting to at least be able to defend themselves in some way,
what
shape,
they
or
say,
form.
Too long of a process. It's too lengthy. Well, I'm sorry, but an elected official, people say, oh, it's a left-leaning. That mentality is what is the problem in our society. It's okay if it's us doing it to them, but
yeah,
how much do we like it when it's being done to us? And it's being done to us more often than we have the ability to reverse it. And actually, we don't do that. But it shouldn't be easy to remove an elected official. Now, it should be easier through the municipal affairs process.
Yeah.
We're not talking about recall here. And if it was really a concern by this administration and this province that rogue elected officials weren't living up, this is ironic, that officials weren't governing according to their promises, so the province needs to keep them in line, then shouldn't we maybe take a look at Bill 52, the recall legislation in this province? But guess what? Guess why they don't want to do that? Because that will hold them accountable too. No, we only want to hold municipal officials accountable. And that's the problem. That's the axe that I will grind. But that makes me that makes me the enemy to stop.
So there's like I mean, really what we're seeing right now is I think a breakdown and an unveiling of all of this shenanigans. And I think it's a great opportunity for Albertans right now, because it's okay to have had faith in somebody and to change your mind about them because they haven't delivered. I mean, a lot of people they still have a lot of faith in Smith, that she's she can't do anything, I hear, because of X, Y, and Z excuse. And I don't buy it. I'm kind of the person that believes in, you tell the truth no matter what. And the stakes are too high these days in order to play politics the way that it has traditionally been done. And from my perspective, we are on the cusp of World War III. We are under threat of the World Health Organization having total control over Canada and our healthcare sovereignty. They just passed the international health regulations under our noses, distracting us with this treaty. Oh, the treaty didn't go through, but anyway, we had unanimous consent over the international health regulation amendments that are still going to put Canadians into a situation similar to they were in last time. We know that the avian bird flu scam is on its way through, and we know that the agenda for these maniacs is to depopulate and to have full, complete worldwide control over the citizens of this planet, which includes everything from what kind of car you can drive or whether you can drive a car. We have Edmonton implementing the 15-minute city here in Alberta, right under the nose of the most freedom-loving premier, who is saying absolutely nothing about it. And then we have, by and large, these politicians across Canada and within Alberta who aren't talking about these major issues that are going to forever transform Alberta and Albertans' way of life. Instead, she's, playing dress up with certain special interest groups, and she's bringing in legislation that is going to decimate Alberta's economy. Anybody who is fulfilling the globalist World Economic Forum ESG net zero agenda is a globalist. And so I think it's time for all of Albertans to realize, all conservative Albertans to realize, that they've been duped and that they need to maybe pivot and make a different choice.
Okay. So a lot of people will be like, okay, that's a lot. I don't agree with any of it, or I don't agree with some of that.
Yeah.
And they may not be there yet. So take a step back, Catherine. Take a step back to 2018, 2017, 2015, and just and go back to what conservatism was all about, what the provincial politics was all about. The PCs, government, fiscal responsibility, social issues back then were a lot less complicated even. But let's go back to the fiscal responsibility side of things. Let's say Smith has delivered on their mind, she can't do anything, and this is federal and foreign, and it's not our jurisdiction. Okay. Well, let's go back to some of the promises that Smith has made in relation to fiscal responsibility, what the party strives for, the UCP party strives for in relation to fiscal responsibility, and where we're actually at. Well, for starters, we all were promised a tax cut in the general last year.
Yeah.
That has completely, and here's what that would have entailed. Smith said every Albertan earning over 60,000 could save $760 annually, $760 annually, and those earning less than 60,000 would see a 20% reduction to their provincial tax under the proposed plan. It will result in real and significant savings that can be put towards housing, life's other necessities, planning for the future, or whatever else is a priority for you, Smith said. Okay, well, guess what? When the time came for this tax cut to be implemented, the budget earlier this year, 2024 budget, right? That's when you incorporate a tax cut. There wasn't room for it. It was scrapped, or sorry, delayed. Now I say delayed or scrapped because we've already forgotten about it. And here's something that columnist Rick Bell, and I can appreciate Rick Bell at times. He cuts straight to the crap. You know what he said? Oh, might have just
No, you're still good
here. He said, "What's to consult? It was a promise."
Yeah.
It was a promise of a tax cut. We were promised by a premier in a general, like some people say, well, she could say, she couldn't deliver on all of her leadership race promises because of caucus, and she didn't know, she made some mistakes, and she probably did. She didn't know how the judicial system works, all of that. But this is now Premier Smith running to remain Premier Smith in May of 2023, where she makes a promise to deliver a tax cut. That promise was not met. So it's another promise broken. This is not a COVID. This is not a social issue. This is not a world. No, this is to all those progressives, those progressive conservatives. This is a fiscal promise made and broken. But guess what there was money for? There was money for trains. There was $1.8 billion for Dow Canada and their net zero. And now we're going back into this, climate
well,
change.
You can't avoid it because it's part of it.
And integrated in everything. There was $1.8 billion. That's just one example of corporate welfare. But there wasn't a few dollars for Albertans. We keep on, this administration and this premier loves to bang Ottawa over the head about affordability. And don't get me wrong, I agree with them. Affordability is a huge problem. We are in a crisis. We are in the beginning of a significant crisis in relation to affordability. Inflation is a huge issue. The cost of everything has gone up. Corporations are out of control. Corporate profits are through the roof. But what is Alberta doing in relation to affordability? It's we're master manipulators. We're master deflectors, is what this administration.
Well, and in fact,
this
and her budget, and in this
there you go.
little document that you sent, the budget, you have 71.2 billion in spending, a 20% increase over the $59.4 billion budget tabled by Kenney before he left in 2022. Smith hiked provincial spending in 2 years by more than the Notley government did in 4 years. Between her final $56.2 billion budget in 2018 and the last one by the Conservatives. So we have a situation where spending is quite out of control under this UCP government. And, of course, that conservatism is about, and one of the things that I know that the party does support is decreased spending. Yet she's increased spending in the budget. She's not reducing the taxes. These are having a major impact to everyday life in Alberta and for Albertans, as you rightly point out. So, I mean, you're right. I mean, the globalist stuff might be too much for people to chew on in terms of, getting their head around, but she has failed to to meet many of the promises that she
Well, these are the UCP
had
founding
committed
principles,
to.
right? Yeah, so
Exactly.
these are the founding principles: fiscal responsibility, including balanced budgets, debt reduction, and respect for taxpayer money. And there's been some debt reduction. There's been some contributions to the Heritage Fund, which is all great. I mean, credit where credit's due. Limited government. I don't think we're making the cut. We're setting up more crown corporations than, like, this UCP government is setting up more crown corporations than ever before, including limited government, including low levels of taxation to help generate economic growth. Taxation is low, but here's the interesting part. People look at taxation as the tax rate. Well, you know what else is called taxes? Fees, levies,
Oh yeah.
Everything that goes to government is a
Licenses.
tax.
Yeah.
Licenses, registration, it's all
Yeah.
taxes. Did you know that the some license or some properties, title registrations, there's a
Oh yeah,
fee.
that's going up.
That fee,
Yep.
that's, well, going up. Like, we're not, not 10%, not 15%. You want to know how much it went up? It went up 150% in 1 year, from budget 2023 to budget 2025. It was
Yeah.
$2.50, or sorry, 2.5% for every $1,000 of value. Now it's at 5.
Yeah, it's it's
Or
quite
150, and now it's at 5. Whatever,
unsustainable.
150%.
It's quite it's not sustainable, and we can't I for myself, we are being taxed literally into poverty, and it's leading into, which leads to death. I mean, ultimately that's what happens, right? And so we have to start to get this under control. I want it, but I'm also cognizant of the time, and we've been talking for about an hour. What I'm really passionate about is that the fact that this so-called conservative government is uh, is supporting initiatives like diversity, equity, and inclusivity, and sexual orientation and gender identity in our schools. Specifically, we have a UCP MLA, Tanya Furr, raising the pride flag in Edmonton on behalf of the UCP government. I think it's abhorrent. I think that political agenda has no place in our schools, in our institutions. It actually has no place in our government whatsoever, and should be completely removed. That flag should not be allowed to be flown on any municipal, provincial, or federal government institution grounds or buildings, from my perspective. And so we have this government that has and I would argue that these principles, this agenda, is not conservative whatsoever, and it's in fact going to destroy and harm many children. It's dividing families like we've never seen before, and it's pushing it's force feeding Albertans something that they don't want, by and large. How can this how can we be tolerating a premier that is pandering to this agenda?
Well, it's along many other things that we talked about, right? I mean, a lot of people have different views on that agenda, but we're starting to see the real objective of that agenda, right? The whole pride movement. It was
Yeah.
it was largely a do your thing and leave us alone movement for the first decade, and we've now seen what it's transitioning into. And it's transitioning into mutilation of minors, indoctrination, which that was pretty predominant, but it's taken away. It's interfering in the rights of parents, which are just It's not something that needs to be legislated. It's just the right that a parent has.
The government
the
needs to butt
schools.
out. It is at the end of the day, the government needs to butt out. The government should not be funding gender reassignment surgeries. Should not be for anybody, whether you're an adult or a child. Definitely, if you're a child, and we should not be subsidizing any drugs or anything related to any of that. From my perspective, government needs to butt out of all of it, and I'd like to see a government in place that completely removes that from all elements of public life and does not support any of it. So that's kind of my.
I think there's a lot of people that agree with. I think there's a lot of people that agree with you on that, and that's where it goes back to involvement, right? And I mean, it's time. It obviously hasn't affected people enough yet, and until it does, until it really starts to affect them, that's when you see people stand up and challenge that narrative. And I think we're starting to see that. I really think we're in June, we're in Pride Month, and I mean, I'm not looking to engage it, if you know what I mean, in my daily life. I don't, I'll steer out of the way. I mean, I won't. I may go take a look, see here, or see what's going on, read up on this, and have a comment there. But it used to be something that we just didn't align with, we didn't agree with, and we stayed out of it, which was difficult for me as a municipal councillor for many years. But my position was well known, especially in my role as councillor. But and I did so in a respectful manner. I always remain respectful in dialogue, and I mean that for me is a key thing in all confrontational aspects of society of these issues, anyways, in society and social issues, right? Opinions are real, and conflict is also something that is front and center, right? People get very excited about, and they should be. They should get excited about things that affect minors and the agenda behind this movement. But involvement is key.
Oh, I agree, 100%.
This goes back to how do you get government to listen? By showing up. Well, they're not listening. Yeah. Show up again. This is not. It's not a race. It's a marathon. Look at how long the creep of social decay has been working its way into our institutions. Come on, somebody tell me, or somebody. Sorry.
It's been decades. It's been decades. It's decades.
Clearly, like it's been 2 decades at least. It's been clearly for 15
longer,
years
since
in rural Alberta.
At least from World War II.
No, I'm not. No, but not to the degree that no. We like when would we have seen the Pride flag or other forms of that movement making their way into the public school system in this province, for example?
Oh, well,
right?
This Marxist communist agenda, which is where this BS originates from, it comes from it's been happening for many years, hundreds of years, but it's been in
you're gonna lose people with that, Catherine. You're gonna lose people when you say Marxist communist.
Okay, well, whatever. They can be lost if they want to.
But
still, that's fine. But
no, we have to connect the dots. We have to connect it up. Yeah, but the truth or not, you can, this is where we're going to disagree, because being a lone voice in the wilderness is not effective. It's absolutely detrimental. Marco, that you be effective.
Sure, but I'm not right now currently running for an office, right? So that's
but we have an audience.
Really we do, but the thing is, people are smart and people are getting it, and they know what's behind this agenda. They are understanding what's behind this agenda. And if they don't understand, I encourage them to go and, I can provide sources that they can go investigate. But at the end of the day is this agenda has been, it's rooted in communism, in Marxism, and this has been it's been a plan since especially the end of the World War II, and the plan was to infiltrate all institutions within America. So that's what's happened. It's creeped into Canada as well. And that's why our academic institutions, like our universities, are completely woke. That's why our governments are. That's why our corporations are. And it's this weird, crazy hybrid of communism and fascism that we have sweeping the globe right now. But ultimately, that's what people need to realize is the genesis of this, because when I
But
realized that,
when did the pride movement start? When did the specific? There's
long
been
time ago, long time ago. I mean,
when?
I mean that this is part of it. I mean, there's always been
No.
obviously
I
gay
want
and
to
lesbian
I want to narrow
people.
down to the pride. Okay, but when did they start to infiltrate our provincial Canadian? We can say Canadian. When did they start
Well,
to infiltrate our provincial
I
institutions?
think I think you would probably see it mostly starting around 2013, 14, and 15. I think
I was going to
that's when
say 2010, that era, but we're probably
yeah.
close there, right? But because that's what most people see, that connection, right? Now it's tied back to an agenda that is bigger. Absolutely, I'm not disputing that, but what people see and what we're looking to challenge, because I have difficulty, and I mean, I'm always open to entertaining and have discussions that extend beyond our international borders. But I have difficulty focusing and putting real effort and thought into something that is so far beyond our control and involvement and scope that it makes absolutely no sense for me to lose sleep over it, focus on it, try to change it when there's no way for me to change it. Like, I mean, even Ottawa, for example, is something so out of reach for me and you and for many Albertans. It
Yeah.
really doesn't matter what we think, and this is in general as Albertans, we're Canadians. We are not. We don't matter. We do matter, obviously. If there was a natural disaster, we matter, but we don't matter enough for them to legislate accordingly. So never mind Ottawa. If we now go to where these in Geneva, the UN, Brussels, the EU, Switzerland,
Davos,
I
yeah.
understand. I understand the connection, but I have no ability. So unless I'm part of an international organization that has real ability and we lobby government and we show up at these conventions like the one that happened last
Well,
week or this week, maybe that's
but
something we
you
need to do. But right now,
but
we can build walls.
okay. Well, okay, Marco, the thing is there is a solution actually. It's a separatist solution, and we have
Build
a
walls.
mechanism on. Well, no. We I don't know, we leave the Constitution of Canada and become our own nation state. And in fact, there's a mechanism, and just like pulling out of the pension plan, it's not going to be swift, quick, or easy, but there
It's
is
a
a
thousand
mechanism to
steps.
do that. And the
Yes.
thing is, though, we need to recognize, we need to understand the head of the snake in order for us to be able to chop the snake's head off. And that
Oh no, we're
happens.
not chopping this. No, I disagree. You're
No, but
saying two things to me.
ultimately,
We're not chopping the snake's head off.
okay, well, you may not
We
want
will
to,
never
but
win there. No, but we will
well, okay,
never
well,
succeed there
but Marco, we still need to understand what it is that we're dealing with. At some level,
on a
we need
local
to
level,
understand. Sure, but we need to
on a
understand what's
provincial
behind
level.
that, because okay, and this is where this is the problem. When you deal with things in a piecemeal manner that do not relate to the head of the snake continues to want to eat, and it doesn't matter what kind of changes you make, legislative or otherwise, unless you make efforts to rid to get rid of that head of the snake with the real evil that's causing all of this. All of our fruits and efforts will be for nothing, because it will still want to be fed. We need to understand, ultimately we need to pick our battles. We need to see what we can achieve as individuals given the resources that we have as citizens. Sure, I agree with that. And we don't have the necessarily the funding or the manpower to be able to fight Davos, Switzerland, but we need to understand what's behind it. We need to understand the evil that we
Absolutely,
see in
absolutely.
Edmonton, and we
Yeah.
need to understand where the genesis of that. If we don't understand the genesis of that, then all of these other things that we think are victories won't be victories, because at the end of the day, they'll be completely whitewashed by the same agenda. Ultimately at the end of the day, and that's what I believe. So yeah, having an understanding of what's going on right now doesn't mean that that's the issue we need to tackle, but we do need to understand that this is an issue.
We need to
where this
understand
originates from, because
but your
for
level of
instance,
what
like,
you want, no, what you want to understand, Catherine, and what you're willing to understand, and what you're willing and able to comprehend, and your interest, you mentioned it 10 minutes ago, what really interests you is this DEI. That is exclusive to very few. It intrigues me to some degree, not to the same level, I'll be honest, but it doesn't it interests people enough as to how it affects them locally, provincially, and maybe nationally. Maybe Albertans, conservative Albertans, and less than ever conservative Albertans care about issues nationally. So you gotta, like, when you say pick your battles, understanding all of that, correct. People in key positions leading the charge need to have knowledge of the issue, how all of that, counterattack, you name it, the agenda. But to try to educate people on this, good luck. People don't have the understanding. A lot of people don't have the ability, the interest, or the ability to understand this complex issue. All they know is it's infiltrated our systems. Getting them to show up is such a substantial effort. I would know. Getting them to just show up for their own issues, local issues, provincial issues. So to focus on something that is completely out of our jurisdiction, out of my jurisdiction, it just doesn't. It doesn't resonate. It doesn't resonate.
Okay, I hear it. I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, Marco, but it is in our jurisdiction. It's in our government. It's in the policies. It's the
what can we
thing.
do
No,
about it,
listen.
right?
It's the thing. It's the thing that's influencing our laws in the creation of our laws. So if we don't address it, then, like, everything else, it doesn't really matter.
But can we address it federally? Can we address it federally?
Well,
like we've tried to change legislation federally.
We can.
No, I don't think we can.
Of course we can. It's called the Clarity
Alberta?
Act.
How does Alberta influence legislation? Now, unless Alberta is aligned with Ontario and Quebec on this issue, but how does Alberta alone influence government in Ottawa? Like, even if it's a conservative government, let's say Pierre Poilievre wins, we're still second fiddle. Alberta's always been second fiddle. And now I'm talking about all issues, not just this issue. So while Pierre Poilievre is actually pushing back on some of this, he's on the campaign trail, right? These guys are good. They know the issues. They know the buttons to push. But when they're actually in government, which I believe they will, they'll form government. Now things may change. Mark Carney, Liberal rebound. I'm not going to get into that, but if the CPC forms government, do we actually believe that maybe there's one non-CPC MP in this province, maybe Heather McPherson holds her seat, but do we believe that all the staunch rural blue MPs in Alberta, some in cabinet, will matter? No, they won't, because it's always about Central Canada. And when we say Central Canada, I'm not talking about Winnipeg.
Well, that's why I'm saying we got to leave Confederation.
Right. So then, right.
That's what we have to do.
But then talk about jurisdiction.
So there is a solution.
So we have to talk about jurisdiction.
Yeah. Well, I know, but
that's
there is
Edmonton.
a solution.
That's not Ottawa. That's not Davos. That's not Geneva. It's Edmonton. Because to say Edmonton is evil, I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, it's in every municipality. It's
Marco,
evil abounds.
Marco,
but
we have a government. No. We have a government that's implementing net zero. Net zero is a World Economic Forum UN agenda driven initiative. Okay. The Paris Climate Accord is net zero 2050. We have Danielle Smith jumping up and down, getting all excited about net zero 2050.
But you're focused on the person.
No, no,
And
no,
I don't
no,
do
no,
that.
no, 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 no. I'm focusing on her government because you know what? The NDP government is no different.
Then
And the
focus on the
UCP,
government.
okay, well,
Okay,
I
you
am
go on.
focusing on the government. Okay, whatever. You want me to, now you're getting all like
No, no,
defensive
no,
about
no.
the
I'm not.
person.
I'm not getting defensive.
Okay.
I'm saying that you say Daniel Smith jumping up and down. I mean, let's focus
Well,
like
she
it, because
does. She gets really
human
excited.
nature abounds. Human nature abounds everywhere. To say it
Okay,
abounds
fine.
only
Let's talk.
in Ottawa and Edmonton,
Oh, no, no, no.
like
Look at, we have a situation here where we have a government who is investing billions of dollars into carbon capture, setting up a carbon capture infrastructure, which is a boondoggle based on nothing, based on a lie that
it is
CO2 is a
100%,
pollutant.
100%.
Okay. So we have that.
It's
She's implementing
it's a
that.
Ponzi scheme. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
for sure. She's implementing that. Okay. She's wanting to double immigration in Alberta by 2050. She stated that in a Sean Newman podcast in December of 2023. I get asked this all the time.
Yeah.
I get called a liar all the time because I bring this point up and people are shocked when they learn this, but it's true. And so when you're implementing a globalist agenda, you don't get to divorce yourself from the fact that it's a globalist agenda and say that we have to deal with local issues. These issues, I know, yes, we do have to deal with the local issues, but they're
We
being
have to
highly
deal with the
influenced by the
globalist agenda locally.
globalist agenda. And that's
Right,
why
right.
I believe now is more than ever, like there are many good reasons why Alberta, why I believe in separation, and they have to do with the economics. We've been given a really raw deal with the equalization payments. In fact, Albertans voted overwhelmingly under Jason Kenney to get out of and to change equalization, and nothing has been done with that. So
Because it's
there
not
are many good
possible. It
reasons,
was
right? And there's
Queensland.
many good reasons why Alberta should want to become its own nation state. However, the biggest reason I believe that exists today is the globalist agenda threat. And because Canada is so tied to the UN and gives all billions of dollars to the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum. We have Chrystia Freeland, who sits on the board of trustees for the World Economic Forum. And so we have a situation where that globalist structure has a high degree of influence on Canada and Alberta as well. In fact, AHS has had contracts with the World Health Organization, especially during the
Yeah, yeah,
pandemic or the pandemic.
absolutely.
And so we have a situation where if we can't control our Canada's membership into these globalist organizations, then we can control our membership within Canada. And that
Okay,
really
okay.
is
I
the
got a question for you on
lifeboat
that.
that's a lifeboat that Albertans have at their disposal should they wish to use it. And I think now's the time that we set that into motion.
Okay. So talking about Albertans and our lifeboat, and I agree with the fact that our membership in these organizations isn't something Alberta has some kind of a veto on, unfortunately, and we're dragged along with the rest of Canada as the race we're in. Maybe we're the turtle at times, but we're still on that path with that same destination compared to other parts of the world. But now let's take into fact the real aspects of Albertans, and where we stand, because you and me align on most everything. We may agree on how to get there, disagree on how to get there at times. But did you know that 46 or 47% of Albertans support everything you don't support? So
For sure. I mean, yeah, like it's
okay.
nuts.
So how do you propose that? How do you? I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but how do you propose? Because you can say Rachel Notley's not Albertan, but she is. She really is. All those NDPs, like all those 85,000 members of the NDP party at this point, they're Albertan too. Now, I mean, I think they're behaving very un-Albertan, but I mean, they're But
I think,
reality.
I think
How do we?
yeah, I think you already answered your question. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Like if we recognize the real trouble
No, but I'm
that we're
talking. No,
in
I'm sorry.
as
I'm talking about
Albertans.
eliminating the agenda from our bound. I'm sorry. I'm not talking about how we get there. I think there's enough people there. I think there's enough majority to form government, and then for government to take these steps without having a referendum on every bloody initiative. I don't think everything has to be a referendum, even though everybody wants a referendum. And I mean, once you get into the habit of referendums and the truth of the issue is out there, I think we're going to start to see percentages along the 60% in favor of some of these initiatives that benefit Alberta, even though there's sentiment, there's some patriotism that people don't want to hurt Canada. Okay, well, let's work with that, but we're due what we're owed.
Well,
But
I've always
I'm
kind of
talking
said
about
nostalgia isn't a plan. Like, it's
no, it's
nice and
not. It's
everything, and
not.
I get it that, I mean, I'm Canadian too. I love Canada as well, but I don't like what Canada has turned into, and I don't like the corruption. Let's just
Okay.
get to it. It's rotten from the core. And let me just also say this. I do believe in Alberta separation, but I wouldn't trust Danielle Smith with that. Like, you also
Okay,
need
yeah,
a
but sorry,
government that
I want to
is
finish
not
this. I want to finish this part of the
okay.
discussion. I want
Okay.
to finish
Okay.
because I want this. This goes back to human nature. So we're looking at this globalist agenda like it's some alien funded, alien initiated, alien supported, and just you get what I'm saying. Alien, non-Earth. It is Earth, but plan that. Unfortunately, Alberta is just we got tied up in. We're on the wagon and we need to jump off. But here's the thought. Do you not think that, because you may think Klaus Schwab, and I mean now his daughter, that they're the worst of their kind, and Trudeau, they're the worst of their kind, and some people may say Rachel Notley is the worst of her kind, but we have there will never be a disconnect. There will never be the ability to disconnect Alberta from this agenda when you don't deal with the real problem. And the problem, in my eyes, is that society is in line with this agenda. Now, there's elements of society that
only
isn't.
because everybody's going along with it, seemingly.
Along with
So,
who, though? Are you saying there's some master manipulator that lives in Switzerland, Geneva? How
well,
many
Marco,
little Klaus Schwabs reside in Calgary, Alberta?
well, I don't know.
Not by
Like, there's a lot
Well,
of
I mean, but I'm
people.
talking about
Like,
human
there's
nature.
a
I'm
lot of
talking about human nature,
listen. There's a
the
lot of people
desire
that
for
are
this.
that are benefiting from carbon capture initiatives, like Murray
In
Edwards,
this
like Brett
province.
Wilson.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
They have a
So
lot. They have a lot more
there are
influence
people.
than you and I do combined.
Well, sure, but they like the economics, like Brett Wilson told me. He likes the economics of net zero. So what he's really saying to me is that he likes the money. And so that's
Money
fine
drives all.
when
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
right. So that's fine for him, but it really sucks for me and you and the rest of Albertans that are suffering, paying, $1.70 at the gas um, station these days.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely. Yep.
okay, so I mean, we have to realize that this agenda one has been it's been played, it's been seeping in for decades. Okay, so the trans agenda, it might be seemingly a little bit more on the scene, like I said, the early 2000, mid 2000, 2015 maybe, probably earlier before that, but this agenda has been creeping in, and everybody, I mean, Stephen Harper signed us on to the Paris Climate Accord, conservative,
And I
so-called
don't even
conservative
think he knew
government.
what he was signing us on to at that time.
Well, it
I
doesn't
don't. I don't
matter.
think.
I don't care. Like, then, like,
No. I'm not
I mean,
defending him. I'm just.
these people are committing Canadians and Albertans to things that we are now, that our leaders are implementing. Colonel David Redmond, he spoke at NCI, the National Citizens Coalition Initiative, or is that what it's called? Initiative, NCI. That's
National Citizens Initiative.
Yeah, Citizens Initiative that was going around with Sean Buckley and his group of people. Who was originally started, I think, by Preston Manning, was supposed to be part of it. In any event, he if anybody wants to listen to that, it's a long presentation by Colonel Redmond, but he was involved with implementing and creating the emergency response system for Alberta, and he was the first to point out that Alberta did not follow the emergency response that they had already laid out when COVID hit. And why didn't they follow it? Because they were receiving directives from the World Health Organization at the time, even though we were, as Albertans, unaware of what was going on. That's why in every jurisdiction we had similar pieces of legislation. We all had circles and dots on the floors. We all had plexiglass. Like, it was all the same coordinated effort, right? Somebody had to do that, and it happened through the World Health Organization. But what Colonel Redmond says, and I agree with 100%, you need one leader. You need one person in Canada, one leader, such as a Danielle Smith, who's a premier, to start telling the truth about all of this and calling it out. And that pertained to COVID, and I still believe in that, but it also pertains to the bullshit around net zero 2050, and the whole idea that CO2 is a pollutant, and creating an industry out of carbon capture that doesn't exist on the backs of hardworking Albertans that will eventually be bankrupted by this imaginary money system, that the commodity that they've created. And you need one leader to call them out on the destructiveness of immigration and why that is bad. And when you have that one leader, just like you and
not immigration as a whole, not immigration as a whole.
Okay, well, but my point being, Marco, is that you need one person.
I'm an immigrant.
To sure, that's fine. I'm talking about mass uncontrolled immigration that we're having
immigration
right now.
That doesn't align with the social fabric of Alberta.
Exactly. I'm not talking about eliminating.
But I know, but everybody's anti-immigrant. Well, I know, but people need to clarify that. That's a big thing for me, because I'm an immigrant first.
Yes.
Landed.
Well, of course. I'm talking about this. What's happening right now, which
from jurisdictions that no longer.
And besides which, we don't have the infrastructure to be able to deal with this, obviously. So my point
is
even the
interprovincial immigration.
My point is exactly, even interprovincial. My point is this: we need one leader, and Danielle Smith can still do it. I think she can still do it. She can still be the champion. She can start tomorrow. And you know what she has to do, Marco? All she has to do is tell the truth. Just tell the truth.
It's not that hard.
And
it's not that hard. Well, I mean, it is hard. No.
It's hard. It's hard when you. It's hard for, depending on what your objectives are. Now, will she get reelected? Probably not. But you know what? Exactly. I bet you but maybe she does, because you know what? People want to trust their elected officials. People trust is at an all-time low. There's no accountability within government. There, like, all of these things, like, like these congressional hearings. Yeah, Fauci said this. Nothing's going to happen. Like, we recognize this. It's just all political theater, and then life goes on the way it is. But if she could change the tide of how politics is done in this world, and she could be the inspiration for others to do the same. And that's what I want for the leaders of our province. I want somebody to stand up and say, no, we're not doing this. And I don't care if I don't get reelected. This is the right thing to say. This is the truth, and I'm not going to go along with it, and you can't pay me off. That's what I want. Mm-hmm. And I want people to be held accountable. I want people to go to jail, and I want, if they are found guilty of a crime, and there are many crimes that need to be investigated, many actions that need to be investigated, especially for the last four years. And we need leadership in Alberta that's prepared to do that. And I think that would be a good first step for people to do. So on that note, we've been talking for an hour and a half. And
I agree with that last statement. I agree with the last statement.
So and I know that you've been pushing on social media. The UCP is having an AGM coming up in the fall, I believe. Is that
November 1st and
correct?
2nd, correct. Yeah.
November 1st, and I know that early bird
Hope to see
tickets
you there.
are. Well, I hope to as well, but I'm kind of still in limbo here. I don't have my membership back, and we'll see what happens. I put in my application for my membership to be reinstated, and let's hope that I get to become a member and participate in the uniparty in this democratic process, so-called democratic process. But I do want to be involved. I do want to be involved. I want to be involved. I want to be part of a solution of a better Alberta, and I know you do too. And that's why I'm really pulling for you. Like, I really want you to be kicking around here, and I hope that you get. I hope that your sentence isn't too harsh, is what I'm saying.
Oh, that way. Yeah. I mean, that may backfire on them if it is harsh. I mean, I don't know.
But you know what? As they say, like, as I always say, reality and perfection are synonymous, right? I do believe in it. I believe in God. I believe that whatever is happening exactly right now is happening for a reason, and it's really up to us to look at.
We don't always understand. Yeah,
we don't understand why, and sometimes the biggest adversities turn out to be the biggest blessings and the biggest gifts. Certainly that's been my experience in my personal life.
Maybe Marco needs to go to jail for a year. Maybe there's something that needs to happen. I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna put a humor into it, right? I'm always one to crack a joke. I mean, I have two choices. You can laugh or you can cry. I'm not a big crier. Nobody wants to see me cry. So maybe, but in all seriousness, my dad said it too. Maybe Marco has to go to jail. And people say that's ridiculous, and it is. But trying to understand that is difficult because I'm facing jail now. I mean, I'm convicted, and I actually talked to my lawyer today about an appeal, which we're not there yet. But I just, we want to fix things now, and we don't have time. I mean, I have friends who just, they want to start a revolution tomorrow, and I'm joking, but we're out of time, and it's like 10 years from now, right? 10 years from now, we'll realize how much time we had, and we wish we would have started yesterday on this year-long plan, which we don't have time for today, right? But 2 years from now, when we could have started the 2-year plan, and we wish we would have, and I'm talking in general, it's like, sometimes it's like, even in a day, it's like, oh, it's going to take me 3 hours to get there. 3 hours later, it's like, shit, I should have just done it, right? I should have just started.
I know. Well, exactly. Like, why put off?
We're procrastinators, right? Yeah.
Well, we are, and I certainly can be, for sure. So, in addition to getting involved with the party to influence the policies there, and potentially the leader of that party, as well, join like the NDP as well. They're going through a leadership race right now, so that's certainly going to be exciting, and it should be important for people to participate in that as well. I understand. I read one of your posts a little while ago, I think last week, where you posted something that David Parker had used TBA, Take Back Alberta money, to solicit to enlist the services of an individual to dig up dirt on you. I understand that came from TBA money. Can you confirm that? Because that's what the post, your ex post, seemed to insinuate.
Yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, I was made aware by some media that was looking into this, and they were planning to write about this, and they never did. So the information was released in a different manner. But I was made aware, and if I hadn't, on the fact that David Parker had used Take Back Alberta Society money, donation money from Take Back Alberta donors, to hire a political fixer to find anything on me, civil, legal, I think many people know there's very little love lost between David Parker and myself, but on my part, I've been transparent on it, as much as people haven't agreed with my position at times. They, for the sake of stability and unity, but sometimes I'm like, screw that, screw stability, screw unity. This is the truth. This is what's happening, and I'm not saying I got it all right, but I was clear on what had happened and the deterioration of our relationship. And I challenged David Parker, in aspects of the organization and his positions. And I think Parker's I'm not here to talk about David Parker, but he's a different individual, and he's an individual that needs, in my mind, needs serious help. But me standing up to him was one of the greatest sins a person could commit, right? To challenge David Parker, never mind privately, publicly. And I challenged him. It went public. It was in articles. Don Bray did it. It was a big old drawn out political feud, but it kind of went away, and he needed me gone as the CFO, as the director. So there was an agreement for me to leave, and that meant some reimbursements and some transfers. And I had always said, an amicable resolution for me to exit the organization. I never started it. I was there from the beginning, almost after day one, but I didn't co-found it. So I didn't feel like it was mine to sabotage or control or hold on to. No, I was more than willing to say, we no longer agree. I leave, you have it. And a lot of people left with me. A lot of people stayed. I don't care about that. It's broken apart now largely, but that was a problem for David. And he was out to get me from that moment on. I think spring last year, after the general, so early summer. And, there was a lot of rumors being spread about me by him. And it always came back to me via connections that I had, that he had. And you know how politics is, right? So it wasn't ideal. It wasn't fun. And there's a few times that I sort of responded or reciprocated, but I largely left it alone. Unfortunately, the details of our agreement were never solidified, were never followed up on and followed through on. And I, to some degree, gave up on that. And, it's a lost enterprise, and the financial aspect of it, it's unfortunate. Here we are, even though some of these people that were supporting David at that time are still involved, and I'm involved with them in some ways, but to some degree it's resurfaced and there's conversations happening. But I did not know that I was such a threat to Mr. Parker that he felt the need to take thousands of dollars worth of donor funds to hire, a political assassin is a strong word, but that's who he hired. That's what this guy does. This guy politically assassinates people. And interestingly enough, nothing transpired. And I was on a show with this individual named David Wallace here a week or two ago. And I I said, so what did you find on me? And he says, well, there's not a whole lot to find on you.
Yeah, I saw that actually. I did see that. And he did say that.
Well, my life has been public the last 3 years, very public. And I'm human. I've made mistakes, but there was just some humor behind my question. I'm going to put him on the spot. Like, hey, what'd you find? Anything. And it was, he answered smoothly, but it's kind of disgusting. And,
well, I just want to say that I'm glad I didn't. Well, I think so. I'm just glad that I didn't donate to that, if that's where the funds were going, to dig up dirt on Marco. But anyway, I'll
say this to those that still support TBA. I'm done with that. If you want to shill for David Parker, you think and somehow you want to coexist with me, I'm sorry. No, that's not okay. You want to be involved in Take Back Alberta and talk to me about accountability, responsibility, and all these great things, and you want to continue to shill for David Parker and ignore all the wrongdoings because he's done this, I'm sorry. Then you've become the thing you are fighting. Then you've become exactly the thing you're fighting. We all make mistakes, but to go to that level, to cross very clear red lines, it's unacceptable. And for those involved in that organization to not only fail to hold Mr. Parker accountable, but to aid and abet him by being silent, by being complicit in that organization, how do you expect any kind of blessing or success for your initiatives when you are part of essentially the same thing that you're fighting?
Hey, listen, I am 100% on board with that. I agree with that, Marco, and I agree that that same philosophy needs to be extended through all areas, through my little village here that I live in, to that council, all the way up to the premier's office, all the way up to the prime minister's office, all the way up to whoever the head of that snake is, wherever they're
just
sitting.
People. They're just people. And
they're just people, but we need to have that accountability. And I know you're a man of integrity. 100%. I try to be a woman of integrity and to admit when I'm wrong, tell the truth, and put one foot in front of the other. I truly want to leave a better world for my kids. I want people. I want the freedom to say what I want to say. I want to be left alone to live my life. And I want to get out of this debt slavery system that we're in. But you know what? We've been chatting for a long time, and I'm sure people need to hit the hay, as they say. I really enjoy our conversations, Marco. I think that you're a great guy, and I'm looking forward to working with you in some way, shape, or form. To help change things for the better.
Yeah, and Katherine, I appreciate you having me on. I mean, we challenge each other, and that's I need to be challenged, and I think you need to be challenged. But we can do that respectfully. And I mean, sometimes when you're interrupting each other, it's one thing, but it's not just a conversation where it's like, oh, I agree with you, and there's another state. No, we're diving into the issues, and I understand this is what people would say talk. You know, it's what is this? Like we're not actually fixing things, right? But we're talking about the issues. We're spreading awareness. So in some way, there is definitely an action item here.
I think so. Important. I mean, we're having this conversation, and everybody says, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion. Well, screw that. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about all of it. We
can't talk about politics and religion in the same time, though. But like church and state, like we got to keep that separate.
Oh yeah. We do actually, Marco. But that will be another. That will be another podcast. Okay, man.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for coming on. I'm going to end things, and we will be in touch. We'll touch base throughout, and of course, I want to hear all about everything as your criminal matter proceeds as well.
Yeah, unfolds. Yeah.
So keep me in the loop, please.
Thanks for having me on.
Okay,
Katherine.
Thanks. Stay on while I end this. Okay. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Just wanted to let you know, June 6th, 2 days from now, I'm having Donald Lee on as my guest. I can't wait for that. So tune in a few days for another episode of Responsibility Quotient Podcast. Good night, everyone.
Good night.